unless you've been, I think, living on another planet, or just not reading any trade media at all for the last 3 years, you'll know that attention is a really important topic. I should probably explain, by the way, what the Attention Council is, because, again, not everybody knows. The Attention Council is a not-for-profit group. It's actually multi-stakeholder, so it works across, yes, research vendors, but also publishers, agencies, and we also have a growing number of partnerships with groups like the IAB. In fact, I probably speak to an IAB from some country or other almost every week about attention measurement. Just to give you, I'll give you a couple of data points. Realize put a study out earlier this year where they'd interviewed around 350 media and marketing professionals, and within 3 years, two-thirds of the respondents felt within 3 years attention metrics would take on some form of currency. And that's a subject we'll talk about in this session. And by the way, I should also point you towards the IAB Europe's recent document on attention. So they've done an interesting piece which the Attention Council and a number of other stakeholders contributed to. So that's enough from me. Now let's hear a little bit from our panel. And I'm going to start with ladies first.
Nice.
But if you could say who you are, please introduce yourself, the company you represent, and tell us a little bit about the journey that you and your company or your business have been in, perhaps starting with you, Caroline.
Thank you, Andy. So I'm Caroline Hugoninck. I'm VP Research and Insights for TIDS globally. We started to work on attention a very long time ago, in 2018, and we started on the creative side. Adding attention metrics into our pretesting tool. Then we moved on to the media side because we participated into the attention economy from Dentsu, which was a great piece of research on attention where we learned a lot on the drivers of attention, as you saw on the previous presentation. We launched the attention program, which was a great success. We measured 122 years of attention on TIDS since we started, so it's a huge accomplishment. And actually, yesterday we reached a milestone as we have released attention metrics in our buying interface in TAM. It means that attention metrics will be available to all clients using TIDS Ad Manager alongside viewability metrics and other KPI. So this is for us a great journey.
Brilliant, thank you, Caroline. Michael, perhaps run along the line.
I thought we said ladies first.
Oh, go on then. I'm a man of my word. Suzanne, I'm a man of my word. Suzanne, you go next.
I don't mind. Old school values. So yeah, I'm the CEO of IAB Ireland, and for us, really the significance of attention has emanated from our brand council. We have a number of leading advertisers that are very active members of IAB Ireland, and in particular, the National Lottery was the first brand in the Northern Hemisphere to invest in Karen Nelson's Fields Amplified Intelligence platform. And so in many ways they sort of pioneered and championed that knowledge sharing and learning and shared it with our other brand members, and actually also facilitated other leading brands becoming part of that ongoing use of Karen Nelson Fields research and her platform, and partnered with an Irish agency, Red Sea Research, in doing so, and are sharing ongoing learnings with our market based on her work. Separately, we also have a publisher council, and I should have pointed out the National Lottery study was based on social platforms, exclusively social. So separately we have a publisher council, and IAB Ireland thought and consulted with brands in terms of looking at news sites and quality content sites, and that's having an examination of attention. So we reached out and partnered with Lumen Research, and a big thank you to Mike Follett and the team, and conducted a study which again we shared with our members, and it's been a very useful template looking at the differences in terms of the power, I suppose really, to be honest, of quality content sites and news sites and slow media, and looking at the impact of different creative formats. I mean, very much similar learnings that were shared by my fellow Irish person, Peter Maxwell in Heineken, very similar learnings from that, and actually similarly National Lottery shared similar learnings. So there's a lot of focus and there's a lot of attention in the Irish market, and we're very happy. We would see it would align also with, I suppose, our commitment to ensure for advertisers that advertiser is a better user experience, and also that publishers and platforms are being rewarded for providing quality attention.
Thanks, Suzanne. After a false start, Michael, I've also got a feeling possibly that there may be some subliminal brand placement, in-content placement here taking place, but I'm just preempting your answer.
Not so sure.
Mr. Follett.
So yeah, hi everyone, I'm Michael Isaacs-Olaye, and I lead business development for the EMEA region at IAS. In terms of attention, I think with us in the past, especially this past year, what we've been doing is a lot of research. We have been listening to a lot of our advertisers, our demand partners, in order to really kind of understand exactly the kind of product that they would want us to bring to the market. And so, it was really, good to see what you guys have been doing at Teeds. I think that this approach definitely makes sense. It's one that I think we're sort of, copying in some kind of essence in terms of really trying to learn about it before we sort of, are actively out in market. So, for us, what we've done in the last years, we've kind of understood that from a proprietary perspective, what we can kind of identify 3 main signals. So that would be, visibility. So that's going to factor in viewability as well as time in view. Then we have situation. So now we're going to talk about things such as ad clutter, ad density. And then lastly, we have interaction, right? So that's, scroll up, scroll down, pause, whatever it might be. Engagement, how you've actually engaged with the ad. The kind of jewel in the crown, which is obviously something that you've already alluded to, is we understood from our advertisers that the human element was incredibly important, and so we've been able to kind of announce a partnership, thankfully, with Lumen as well, working with Mike Follett on that, and as a result, that human element is something that we can use now and ingest into our data set and be able to actually train the models that we have in order to be able to recognize attention properly. So the other thing that we've kind of done is we didn't want it to be all fluffy, and so we had a pre-existing product called Total Visibility, which was off the back of an acquisition of EMEA Payments a few years ago, if anyone remembers that. And so this is impression level data. That's what we have with that. Impression level data that feeds into DSPs in order to be able to help determine an outcome. And so when we can actually train, all of these signals as well as the human element with what we're getting from Lumen on those on that model, then we can actually tie attention directly to outcomes. And I think that's something that we're really excited about being in market with.
I might come back to that one, Michael. Last but not least, David.
Yes, thank you. David Cohen, I'm the CEO of IAB in the US. 3 years on the job, 25-year agency career before that. And attention is something at the IAB we have flirted with for quite some time. We're actually spending a lot more time on it this year. For the first time, we're pulling together an attention task force to try to get at some of the vexing challenges, whether it is definition, whether it is kind of the proxy for outcomes. We have a lot of folks from the market that are interested in leaning in. So I'll keep it there and we can get to the questions. We finished introductions. We can go on to the questions now.
Absolutely. Well, why not? I'll ask you a question straight away then, David, in that case, given you gave us so much time back there. Why do you think attention metrics are garnering the level of attention, no pun intended? Why are they so important, do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think this is going to be rocket science, but I think if you're a marketer today, you are trying to the holy grail is, I put a piece of stimulus in the market, I see the cash register ring. In some categories, that's very, very easy to do. In other categories, less easy to do. So we talk about outcome-based marketing, and this is a really good surrogate if you're not able to kind of close the loop. So we're on this continuum. If opportunity to see is on one side, business outcomes is on the other, attention is somewhere closer to the holy grail, which is why I think in the current environment where the economic uncertainty is kind of paramount, marketers are looking for guaranteed data that can justify their investment. And I think attention is one of those things.
Would anybody like to build on that, or would
someone disagree?
Somebody, David desperately wants people to disagree.
I want disagreement, if that's possible.
I agree with everything that.
I think also maybe viewability was not as discriminating as it was 10 years ago, and advertisers were also looking for a way to qualify impressions in a way that was maybe more discriminating again than viewability. That's one of the reasons we saw this growth of attention, but also the measurement itself. The progress in the technology has allowed us to really push forward and scale the measurement of attention, which was eye tracking in a lab, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Caroline. I mean, where I sit, I'm lucky enough to see quite a lot of innovation in the space, and I'm seeing much more widespread use of camera technology for visual attention. I'm seeing innovation in some of the non-visual attention measurement solutions, like galvanic skin response, people building, several thousand home panels in the US doing galvanic skin response. So I think you're absolutely right. I think the technology has also made this more achievable. Perhaps, Suzanne, what do advertisers want from attention metrics?
So I think there definitely has been a bigger focus from advertisers on the branding power of digital in recent years, and I think that's something that we have welcomed as a national IAB, and I think IAB in general. And I think again, looking at measurement, attention is an appropriate measurement for the branding power of digital, and I think that that it's not surprising that a more appropriate metric is required. We've been looking to move beyond the click-through rate for as long as I have been in the industry, which is a very long time. And then also, I think to the other values which advertisers also resonate with them. Obviously, they want to drive sales, they want to grow awareness, they want to grow market share, but they also want to improve the user experience. And again, attention resonates in terms of that.
Any other comments from advertisers?
I would just say, I think we all know that viewability doesn't necessarily go far enough. I think it's an important metric. It's something that's been used all over the years, but I think it sits itself within attention as a whole, and I think we recognise that, and we see that as the kind of next evolution of where we want to be, and as such, that's why attention is something that. Listening again to our advertisers, they were really clear that they wanted us to be able to deliver on this.
Yeah, I think also as we have a positive relationship between attention and outcomes, this is a KPI they can use to drive performance and optimize campaigns based on attention, so that they can have better performance. So this is really an interesting KPI to use so that you can increase your performance.
Okay, I'm just going to change tack ever so slightly. I was intrigued when one of the previous speakers said, I've been in the media industry for 10 years and it doesn't look like it. I've been in the media industry for over 30 years and it does look like it. But most of my time has been involved with media measurement. And I think, particularly if you think about visual attention, it does two things, as Phil highlighted. I think one which is enormous, which gets overlooked slightly, is you're moving from gross opportunities to see to an estimation of was my ad seen, as opposed to people having the opportunity to see it. I think that move from gross to net is a really big deal, as I see it. I think the second piece, obviously, is about duration, and again, you know, Phil showed you there information around attentive seconds. Now, I think these things have fairly far-reaching consequences, in my opinion, for media measurement, and possibly even threaten to change currency. I'm going to start using the C word.
Oh dear.
Here we go. Indeed, you know, Mark Zagorski, the CEO of Double Verify, was actually quoted recently as saying that attention, we're all in on attention, and it may in time supplant viewability, which is interesting coming from a business that's actually predominantly about selling viewability. So this point about currency, and I'm going to start actually with you, Dave, because I know you have a strong opinion on this. You know, do you see it becoming a currency?
Well, I would say if you look at the US market, there has probably never been a time in my history where currency has been so hotly debated. I think that attention is one of those dimensions. If I were to do a broad, sweeping generalization, which is always dangerous to do, we find that the buy side, agencies and marketers, are interested, by and large, in moving to attention as a currency, and sellers, by and large, are not so interested, because there are things that are out of their control which they would be held accountable for, namely the quality of creative. The quality of their environment is obviously a debatable topic. I would say, and I said this to you before, in the hierarchy of all the things that we're trying to balance in currency, where does attention fit? And that's the question. Is it, there's sustainability, there's DEI, there's cheapness for cheap's sake, there's attention. So it's really a spectrum, and it's very difficult to kind of generalize the market in one fell swoop. That might be more of an answer than you wanted.
No, I could challenge you on a couple of those pieces, but I'm not on the panel, so I don't get the opportunity. But again, what about the rest of the panel? What do you think is missing? I mean, if it is to be currency, what's missing?
So if you define a currency as a unit of value which is agreed upon between the sellers and the buyers, it's a de facto currency for some cases because we are already using it for some advertisers. So there's no one currency, there are multiple currencies, and as many currencies as there are in terms of way of buying. So this is already there, or not far from being like something that will be used. I would say by the end of the year, we'll see more and more buying model factoring in attention metrics. Like for example, you can buy impressions above a certain level of attention. Let's say 2 seconds, if we want to mirror what has been done on viewability. This is not so far away. The thing is that we have to agree on what we buy between what we sell and what we buy, and who's measuring it. And for me, that's where the third-party piece is very important, and that's why we partnered as well with third-party for the measurement.
And I think I know the answer slightly already, but again, Caroline's company, Teeds, actually sells on an attention guarantee in a couple of markets, I believe.
Yes, absolutely.
How do you address Dave's point about, well, you can't control the creative? Is that something you don't worry about? I mean, you also demonstrated Atelier creative a little bit on the previous thing. So how do you feel about that?
Well, we use benchmarks so that we have a baseline for the attention we can deliver, so that we are not, over-committing. But we also have a process whereby we are optimizing the creative where possible, so that we are not exposing ourselves too much in terms of the risk. But we have done it in a couple of markets, but it's still very new and nascent. So we need to build upon those first experiments.
So just for my clarity, Caroline, if my creative was awful, I probably wouldn't be able to buy a guarantee with Teads because it would fail the creative test?
Well, we have a baseline that we take for this type of offering. So you could still do it, but of course we want to ensure that the creative has been optimized so that we can guarantee the buy.
That makes sense. We've got 5 minutes left, and we've covered several areas. There's a couple we've sort of referenced in some of the answers that we've given here. There is a school of thought, and it happens to be one that I subscribe to, that widespread adoption of attention metrics will do a couple of things. I mean, putting aside the way in which inventory is valued, but it could end up actually creating a better experience for the consumer in terms of their engagement with advertising, due to less clutter, more conducive formats, more absorbing formats when they consume. So there's this kind of notion of it enhances the overall ecosystem. Now within that, the unspoken component of that is that you might actually be delivering a lower audience, but a much more highly engaged audience, which you're going to charge a premium for because you have to recover the inventory if you're going to start scaling back other, or the volume of ads that you might be running on the site. So what does the panel think? Do you subscribe to that? And do you think that the industry is prepared to pay more for a cleaner, higher attention environment? David,
I can take a crack at that. I think that there is an addiction in the industry around efficiency. And there are some that break that addiction by focusing on effectiveness and not efficiency. But I will tell you, from what we hear from agencies, most of the large pitches today are still based on driving down cost year on year. So that does fly in the face of doing what's good for you, doing what we know is right for the industry, doing what we know is right for the business. It goes against kind of driving down cost year on year. So I think that's a thing that we have to wean ourselves off of. There's no doubt about it. And there are some marketers that are doing that, but by and large, efficiency is still alive and well in the business.
And so, I think that's the reality. But I suppose to say, as an IAB and like IAB US, I would think our role on behalf of all our members is to encourage the adoption of attention. And I know you do too, because yes, it does tick all those other boxes that we hear advertisers speak of now in terms of sustainability. Because if this is the currency that we are going to use, then in theory there should be more creative advertising that gains more attention, but less of it, less clutter, that's more sustainable, it's a better user experience, and better outcomes for the advertisers. So perhaps in the short term, but I am optimistic. I feel passionately that attention is a far better metric for everybody in the industry, and I'm hopeful that will be the situation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we can create a virtuous circle, starting with the user and putting the user at the center. And I think it's more than a shift from viewability to attention, from one metric to another. It's actually a new paradigm where we have the user at the center of the experience. And it's also changing the perception of an infinite inventory that we had with viewability. With attention, we know that it's scarce. We only have 24 hours a day, and we need to be cognizant of that. We need to be aware of that. With attention in mind, when you think about advertising with attention in mind, you will be more respectful potentially of the user experience, and this will drive also a better, more revenue for premium publishers, which is good for the ecosystem. So better results for advertisers. So at the end of the day, it should drive a more sustainable growth for the ecosystem.
And touching on that, I think, the word you just used there in terms of, sustainable, I think there's a lot of research that's showing us how attention can also drive, lower carbon emissions, right? And so, I think there's a lot of different studies that I know that we're planning and wanting to be a part of, but there's lots that kind of exist already out there with the likes of Scope 3, Impact Plus, Good Loop, so on and so forth, in order to be able to really understand how attention can play into reducing your carbon costs.
And just to reiterate, again, as I say, I'm in a lucky position. I get to see quite a lot of this innovation. I mean, a couple of the agencies have now built planning tools where they incorporate attention metrics and, Scope 3's grading of different publishers and inventory into a planning and optimization tool. So I think it is a reality, at least on the buy side, that these things are being adopted. Thank you so much to my panel. If you'd like to give a small round of applause to my panel, I think that'd be great. Thank you.